Hey guys, this will be the last video on the introduction of units. In the previous videos, we talked about the Dwarven units, the Elven units, and one of the Men units. Now we'll be covering the other Men units, so stay tuned. The men of Rohirrim are more offensively focused to the point where they get their own separate quarters buildings. They lack melee infantry entirely, and Rangers and Dundanes stink, so we don't have to include them at all, and get bowmen and cavalries instead for them. They are typically fast and hard hitting. First of all, let's look at some of their data. So the damage is really high for the Cavalier, Sharpshooter, Martial, and Longbowmen, but the damage for the other men units are not very good. Let's look at the other table. It is true that only dwarves are disappointing when it comes to speed. Maybe it's because their legs are shorter than the elves and men. As with the last men's quarters, their defenses were not too good. As for the conscripting, we are seeing again how difficult it is just to conscript the tier 4 units. And you will also find that sharpshooters and longbowmen are all very cost-efficient units. Resources and times which used to conscript are small, but damage and siege are very good. The Martial is considered a perfect unit in all aspects, but you must have enough resources and time. And in the late game, we will be attacking enemies more frequently, and I think it's just unwise to wait so long for conscription. However, we may also be able to use Cavalier as a substitute. Although they are a little weaker than the Martial in all aspects, the conscription of them is much easier. Next, we have the Rohirrim Light Cavalry. The Light Cavalry has an emphasis on killing power, unlike their heavily armored Numenorean cousins. The Light Cavalry is a tier 1 melee unit. Their skill is mounted and can reduce damage received. They are a high-speed cavalry unit and they tend to attack first in battles. But as a star units, they're not really that good. Next, we have the Outriders. They are a tier 2 melee units and their skills are mounted and Rohirrim charge. They can reduce damage received and increase the first instance of damage in battle. Unlike light cavalry, they use their speed to deal harsh first strikes and having a bonus damage for their first attack in battle, which is really good. Now we have the Cavaliers, which are a tier 3 melee units. Their skills are the same as the Outriders and are an assault cavalry. They are rather squishy compared to other tier 3 mounted troops, but with the same hard first blow as the Outriders. They might work quite well if they are protected by the Numenorean buddies. Now we finally have the Rohirrim Bow Infantry, who are a fairly standard bowman. All 3 tiers of them have the same ability to hit harder early in the match. The bowmen are a tier 1 ranged unit. Their skill is ranged advantage. They are about as average as they get, though their bows hit harder on the first few rounds. Next, we have the Longbowmen. They are a tier 2 ranged units and their skills are the same as the bowmen. They're basically the same as bowmen but with higher stats. The Sharpshooter is a tier 3 ranged unit and their skills is as same as the bowmen. Again, rather average, but you may eventually replace them with the more specialized units like Master Throwers or Bow Knights once you get Elven and Dwarven quarters. Though never underestimate that first early strike. Last but not least, we have the Martial, who is a tier 4 melee unit. Their skills are mounted and Rohirrim charge. They can reduce damage received and increase damage in battle in the first instance, which is very important. The Martial unit is exclusive to Rohan, with speed at the focus of its ability. The Martial can blast across the battlefield faster than other units, dealing out high levels of damage in the process. But the issue with the Martial, as you'll see with a lot of Rise to War ground-based units, is their resistance to punishment. They'll go down quite quickly, but they'll also dish out plenty of damage before they do. Now, let's find out the stats of the 4 quarters. In terms of damage, the Elven quarters are the strongest. Then it's Rohirrim's quarters, and last, it's Durin's quarters, who are probably the worst. In terms of siege, the strongest is Durin's full quarters. The second is the Numenorians' quarters, and the worst is the Elven's quarters. Other three stats are defense, speed, and HP. It is obvious that the speed of Dwarven units are really slow. Some Elven units are very excellent, and all men units are quite high. As for the HP, none of the quarters are particularly good, but if you look at this table, I think the men quarters are better overall. As for the defense, it goes without saying that the Dwarven units are definitely the best, and the Elves are just a bit worse. And for the two men quarters, the defense of the Numenorian quarters will be a little better than the Rohirrim quarters. As for the conscription, it is more related to the level of the unit. As you can see, it is quite difficult to conscript those tier 4 units, and there is really nothing that can be done, because they are more powerful than the other units. Okay guys, now we have finally introduced all the different quarters, but this is only just a basic introduction. In war, we have to be flexible. Like having Elven units fight along Dwarven units to have both high damage and high defense. And for attacking larger enemies, we need to know which units we need to choose. Is it Master Axe Thrower, Cavalry Archer, or Bow Knight? Hopefully, you're able to decide through watching my videos. And I hope you enjoy these videos. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next time.